from New York seek recognition. The clerk will read.
Page 3, line 19, Office of the Undersecretary for Management, $213,128,000.
For what purpose does the gentleman from New York seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk.
Clerk will report the amendment.
Amendment offered by Mr. Graham of New York, page 3, line 23, after the dollar amount insert reduced by $7,667,000. Page 36, line 4, after the dollar amount insert increased by $7,667,000. Page 37, line 3, after the dollar amount insert increased by $7,667,000.
The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I rise today in support of my amendment that would fund the National Urban Search and Rescue Response Service at $35.18 million, which is the level which the Senate bill is at, but still reflects a reduction of roughly $6 million from fiscal year 2012. The National Urban Search and Rescue Response System provides a significant national resource for search and rescue assistance in the wake of major disasters and structural collapses. A typical US&R task force will conduct physical search and rescue operations. They provide emergency medical care to trapped victims. They assess and control hazards such as ruptured gas and electric lines and evaluate and stabilize damaged structures. Due to the critical, life-saving nature of their mission, US&R task forces must be prepared to deploy within 6 hours of notification and must be self-sufficient for the first 72 hours. These teams have been deployed in response to the Joplin, Missouri tornado, the Japanese tsunami, the Haiti earthquake, Hurricane Katrina, the 9/11 attacks on the World Trade Center and the Pentagon, the Oklahoma City bombing, the Turkey earthquakes, the grain elevator explosion in Wichita, Kansas, and many other foreign and domestic disasters. In 2006, FEMA estimated the annual and recurring cost of each task force to be approximately $1.7 million. Today, in many jurisdictions, the cost exceeds $2 million. In addition to program management costs, this estimate includes expenses for training, for exercises, medical monitoring of personnel, and equipment maintenance and storage. Current federal funding for the nation's US&R teams only provides a fraction of the funds necessary to maintain each task force, leaving local government sponsors to pick up the remainder of the cost and diverting much-needed funding away from their local first responders' budgets. The recent tornado in Joplin, Missouri, and the subsequent response underscore the importance of the national search and rescue capability. Providing proper funding for the urban search and rescue response system will help ensure that these highly skilled teams are available to respond to major emergencies without jeopardizing the budget priorities for local first responders. Therefore, I urge you to vote yes on my amendment and to properly fund this critical program. Yes, I will.
We will accept the gentleman from New York's amendment.
Thank you very much. And I would like to reclaim, if I can reclaim my time, I just want to thank a friend and colleague, Mr. Connolly, for all his work and joining me in this effort. And I just wanted to say thank you very much, and I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back the balance of his time. For what purpose does the gentleman from Virginia seek recognition?
I move to strike the last word.
The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
I thank the Chair, and I want to thank the distinguished Chairman and the Ranking Member and my colleague, Mr. Grimm from New York, for this thoughtful amendment and for accepting it. USAR teams, Fairfax County, which I represent, has one of the outstanding USAR teams in the world. And as my colleague from New York indicated, they have served both here in the United States in many, many man-made and natural tragedies, as well as around the world, saving lives. And this is a great partnership between local government and the federal government, and it's one that we desperately need to be enhanced. So I very much thank the majority and the minority Leaders, in accepting this thoughtful amendment, I'm proud to join with my colleague, Mr. Grimm, in co-sponsoring this amendment as an original co-sponsor, and I'm delighted it's going to be adopted, and I will insert the balance of my statement into the record.
The gentleman yields back the balance of his time. The question is on the amendment offered by the gentleman from New York. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to. For what purpose does the gentleman from Michigan seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will report the amendment.
Amendment offered by Mr. Clark of Michigan, page 3, line 23, after the dollar amount insert
Mr.
reduced
Speaker.
by $10 million. Page 37, line 18, after the dollar amount insert increased by $10 million.
The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This amendment would add $10 million to state and local grant programs under this budget, and the offset would be from the management account. I'm offering this amendment because our state and local units of government don't have the revenue to adequately protect our citizens in the event of a natural disaster or another emergency. The housing crisis has depressed housing values throughout this country, and as a result has lowered the tax base from which state and local governments depend on raising their revenue. So I urge this House to approve this amendment to better prepare our state and local units of government for emergencies and other natural disasters and terrorist attacks which could occur. Appreciate your support. Now I yield back my time.
The gentleman yields back the balance of his time. For what purpose does the gentleman from Alabama seek recognition?
I rise in opposition to the gentleman's amendment. I have
recognized for 5 minutes.
As I have stated earlier, this bill provides $2.8 billion for Homeland Security first responder grants, $400 million more than provided in FY12. Of that, the bill provides $1.8 billion for the Secretary to provide to programs that address the highest need based on threat and based on risk. The funding for grants have been a high priority for our bill this year, and we believe there's adequate funding for grants. So, like I said, I would reluctantly have to oppose the gentleman's amendment.
Back the balance of his time. For what purpose does the gentleman from North Carolina seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman, I move to strike the last words.
The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I rise to commend the gentleman from Michigan for his attention to the need for robust grant programs, FEMA grant programs for state and local governments in their various emergency preparedness and functions. As we said earlier with respect to Mr. Holt's amendment, these programs have been underfunded in recent years. We're doing better this year in this bill, but we're building on a depleted base. So I commend him for his attention to this. At the same time, I feel bound to say that the offset is problematic. The Undersecretary for Management, I know that sounds like an easy target, but with the Grimm-Connolly amendment that we just adopted, by my calculation, that brings the Undersecretary for Management $30 million below the 2012 level. That's 12%. A cut that, in my opinion, we can ill afford. And that's already what we've done with this bill. So eventually, management and administrative cuts do affect frontline operations. So I feel bound to say that as we balance the equities here, the need for robust grant programs and for making them more robust wherever we can, but at the same time to preserve essential departmental functions. Now I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back the balance of his time. The question is on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Michigan. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it. The amendment is not agreed to.
I ask for a recorded vote, Mr. Speaker.
Pursuant to Clause 6 of Rule 18, further proceedings on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Michigan will be postponed. For what purpose does the gentleman from Texas seek recognition?
I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will read the amendment.
Amendment offered by Mr. Poe of Texas. Page 3, line 23, after the dollar amount, insert reduced by $10 million. Page 9, line 14, after the dollar amount, insert increased by $10 million.
Gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I offer this amendment along with my friend from Pennsylvania, Mr. Altmaier. This amendment takes $10 million from the Office of Undersecretary of Management of DHS and moves it to Border Security, Fencing, Infrastructure, and Technology account with the purpose of being used for border cell phone communication infrastructure to help border residents disseminate border security-related information to the Border Patrol and law enforcement for their protection and the protection of the security of the border. The history, Mr. Chairman, goes back to March 27, 2010, when in Arizona Bob Krentz was murdered 20 miles north of the border in an isolated area in Arizona. The lack of communications capability made Krentz more vulnerable than he would have been otherwise and complicated the search for the assailants. His wife, Sue, who I've talked to on numerous occasions, believes that he was in a cell phone dead zone when he was killed and that he was trying to call for help at the time of his murder. Before leaving office, Congresswoman Giffords had been working diligently on this specific issue, and I became involved with her staff when they took the time to show me around the Arizona border and introduced me to the Krentz widow, Sue. I thank Gabby Giffords for her work on this issue and bringing it to my attention and other members of Congress, and wish her well. Mr. Chairman, these dead zones are so common that oftentimes border ranchers in Arizona and in Texas rely on shortwave radios to communicate or call for help. The inability of the U.S. government to secure the U.S.-Mexico border creates public safety hazards for residents who live on the border and the law enforcement agents who patrol them. Many border areas are rural and lack wireless communication capabilities like cellular phone service, making border security a public safety issue. Last year, I worked with Congresswoman Giffords and Representative Altmaier to pass a similar amendment to the Department of Homeland Security bill. We received overwhelming support in this House with a vote of 327 to 97, and I urge the House to support this initiative again. However, the omnibus bill passed later that year weakened this provision to make it a mere suggestion for DHS to enforce or to solve this problem. Despite that language, the Department of Homeland Security has done very little or anything to address this issue. More work needs to be done, and there's a large number of dead zones along our southern border. That's why this amendment is offered again this year. Rural areas along the border present a unique public safety challenge that can be addressed through the extension of wireless communications into those areas. An additional $10 million can be used to enhance wireless communication capabilities that would allow residents to report threats against them and instances of illegal activities to law enforcement. And such capabilities would enhance communications among our law enforcement and our border protectors. The Director of Homeland Security, Richard Stana, the Director of the Security Issues at the Government Accountability Office, recently told the Senate Homeland Security Committee that as it stands right now, that we have the ability to prevent or stop illegal entries into the U.S. for only 129 miles of the 1,954-mile U.S. border with Mexico. He continued to say that we have achieved, quote, an acceptable level of control on 873 miles of the border. Whatever acceptable level of control means, I'm not sure. In any event, that means 1,081 miles of the United States border is the wide open spaces, Mr. Chairman, and we simply cannot stop illegal crossings of any kind in those areas. The United States doesn't control that area of the border. Mexico does not either. I suspect it's the border or the drug cartels that control that area of our sovereignty. If the federal government is not going to secure the border, at least we can do is give the border residents a chance to call for help when they need help. $10 million will go a long way in helping American citizens have a safer place to live and also allow them to communicate with law enforcement. The Office of Undersecretary of Management for DHS is funded at $213 million in the bill. $10 million is a 4.5 reduction in that account. I think, as the ranking member said, to balance the equities, we need public safety as opposed to more funding for the management of the Secretary. and I will yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back the balance of his time. For what purpose does the gentleman from Pennsylvania seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman, I move to strike the last word.
Gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to thank my friend Congressman Poe for his strong leadership on this issue and for again working with me this year to highlight the critical importance of expanded mobile communications along our southern border. Last year, I had the opportunity to visit the district of our former colleague, Gabrielle Giffords, in southwestern Arizona, where I met with Customs and Border Patrol agents, examined the construction of the border fence, and spoke with ranchers and residents who live and work in the remote areas along the U.S.-Mexico border. In rural areas along that border, cell phone service is virtually non-existent, and where service does exist, it's often unreliable. Some ranchers even have to resort to communicating through the use of two-way radios. The lack of cell phone service presents an obvious safety issue for ranchers, as my friend Congressman Poe outlined, and it's a safety issue for residents and the National Guard troops who patrol that protected area. If a rancher feels threatened, he cannot currently call for help or alert law enforcement to the situation. So to address this issue, our amendment adds $10 million to the general account for border security fencing, infrastructure, and technology to expand mobile communications in remote areas along our southern border. These funds may be used by the Department of Homeland Security to enter into public-private partnerships which will provide a more reliable communications link between law enforcement officials and citizens who live and work in our border areas. Last year, Congressman Poe and I offered a similar amendment that passed with a strong bipartisan vote of 327 to 93, but despite its inclusion in last year's omnibus funding measure, little action has to date been taken by DHS to implement stronger cell coverage along the U.S.-Mexico border. I urge support of our amendment to show DHS that the safety of our southern border is a priority for this Congress. This is a problem we can and must fix. Supporting this amendment will not increase spending, but what it will do is protect the public and increase the effectiveness of law enforcement in rural border areas. I ask my colleagues to support this amendment and yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back the balance of his time. For what purpose does the gentleman from Alabama seek recognition?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I reluctantly rise in opposition to this amendment. I do commend the gentleman from Texas and Pennsylvania for their attention to border security. Border security is a top priority with this subcommittee and with this chairman. But the amendment that is before us at this time proposes to cut the Department of Homeland Security to pay for cell towers to provide phone service actually to the general public. And I am very sympathetic to the needs of rural communities. I represent a rural community and certainly sympathetic to remote ranchers, but this is simply not a cost currently with the situation in this country that Homeland Security can bear. This proposal would cut the Department's management functions below what is responsible for our nation's security. The bill already cuts the Office of the Undersecretary for Management 4% below the request of the President and 11% below the FY12 level. And it should be noted that this bill fully funds the Department's tactical communications. So I would urge my colleagues to oppose this amendment, and I would yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back the balance of his time. For what purpose does the gentleman from North Carolina seek recognition?
Chairman, I move to strike the last words.
The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I rise also to oppose this amendment. I do so reluctantly because I know that the need that Representative Poe and Representative Altmaier are addressing is a real one. There are vast expanses of territory, including a lot of territory near the borders, that suffer from a lack of mobile communications. And we do need to work in concert with state and local governments and the private sector to address this need. This is not something, though, that this bill or the Department of Homeland Security can take on. It simply is not. It's not feasible. It is not a DHS function. So we need to work on it, but I think this remedy is flawed, and I once again say that I know it's an easy target to go after the administrative expenses of the department, but in this case the Undersecretary for Management is already something like 12% below the 2012 level, that is, assuming the passage of the Grimm-Connolly amendment, and I do not think further cuts can or should be sustained. And I yield back.
The gentleman yields back the balance of his time. The question is on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Texas. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it. The amendment is not agreed to.
Mr. Chairman, ask for a recorded vote.
Pursuant to Clause 6 of Rule 18, further proceedings on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Texas will be postponed. For what purpose does the gentleman from New Jersey seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will report the amendment.
Amendment offered by Mr. Runyon of New Jersey, page 3, line 23, after the dollar amount insert reduced by $5 million. Page 41, line 22, after the dollar amount insert increased by $5 million. Page 41, line 23, after the dollar amount insert increased by $2,500,000. Page 41, line 25, after the dollar amount insert increased by $2,500,000.
The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, my amendment increases funding for staffing for adequate fire and emergency response grants by $2.5 million, and assistance to firefighters grants, restoring these programs to FY12 levels. The funding increase is deficit neutral, as it is offset by a $5 million increase to the Office of the Undersecretary for Management. These grants provide a vital funding to our nation's first responders to help them adequately staff firehouses and to provide the necessary specialized equipment to protect our brave men and women. With first responders' budgets being slashed all around the country, this portion of funding will help ensure that fire departments can adequately respond to our constituents' emergencies. During this period of budgetary constraints, we must prioritize the programs we need the most. My amendment clearly shows that our brave first responders are a priority. This amendment is endorsed by the International Association of Firefighters and the International Association of Fire Chiefs, and I thank my colleagues on both sides of the aisle for helping me support this amendment, and I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back the balance of his time.
Speaker.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Michigan seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, to comment on the amendment offered by Mr. Runyon, the gentleman from New Jersey.
Does the gentleman move to strike the last word?
I do move to strike the last word.
The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank the gentleman from New Jersey, Mr. Runyon, for offering this amendment. I have joined him along with this in a bipartisan fashion because our local units of government, they need this money to be able to rehire their firefighters and to get the training equipment that they need to better prepare our firefighters to respond to a natural disaster or a terrorist attack. I support this amendment. This will help cities like Detroit and other municipalities in Metro Detroit who need to apply for these funds. This provides more money back to the level in prior years so that our communities can be safer. Again, I want to commend the maker of this amendment. He has my support. I'm honored to be on this amendment as a co-sponsor. And I yield back my time.
The gentleman yields back the balance of his time. For what purpose does the gentleman from Alabama seek recognition?
I rise to, we accept the gentleman from New Jersey's amendment, and considering the fact that this is only
does the gentleman move to strike the last word?
I move to strike the last word.
The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Considering this is only a $5 million cut, we do accept the gentleman from New Jersey's amendment, and I yield back.
The gentleman yields back the balance of his time. For what purpose does the gentleman from North Carolina seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman, I move to strike the last word.
The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I rise in support of this amendment. I appreciate my colleague from New Jersey bringing this forward, and with full support, I agree with him and I would like to point out that just, for example, June the 17th through the 23rd, that week is EMS Fire Safety Survival Week. It's just one of the many weeks that we recognize our firemen for what they do for us and the importance of what they do for us. There's an image of 9/11, the firemen, and what they did for our nation in New York when we were attacked. But that image is also recurring throughout the nation, throughout the communities, when firemen come to our homes or come to our businesses or go to scenes of accidents. Anywhere our communities need them, the firemen go. This restoring of the grants is just something that we should do, and I'm glad that we are going to do, to secure that bond, to allow them the training, the equipment that they need to take care of us. So this is an investment in them so they can take care of us. I appreciate my colleague bringing this amendment forward. I'm very happy and proud to be on this amendment, and I yield back.
The gentleman yields back the balance of his time. For what purpose does the gentleman from North Carolina seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman, I move to strike the last words.
The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I rise in strong support of firefighter grant programs. I applaud Chairman Aderholt for fully funding the budget request for these programs. That is, providing $670 million for the Assistance to Firefighter Grant Program, equally divided between safer hiring grants and equipment grants. I also commend the Chairman for accepting the amendment our colleagues have just offered. Although, again, the offset is not what one would wish. This is a case, I think, where the consideration, the balance of values clearly leads us to bring this program to the present funding levels, which is what the amendment does. We have approved in committee these firefighter grants, and we've also approved the continuation of the waivers. That was my amendment in committee, and I am pleased that we were able to adopt those. The waivers, economic hardship waivers that are currently in place. The law traditionally permits safer grants only to be used to hire new firefighters. Now that provision makes sense when our economy is booming and local governments are in a position to hire new workers. But when the local budgets are continuing to shrink and some fire stations are closing their doors and others are laying off workers, FEMA needs flexibility. The flexibility to use these grants to keep firefighters from being laid off in the first place. The administration has requested, and FEMA Administrator Fugate testified to this need earlier this year during our appropriations hearings. I believe strongly in the need to assist local fire departments in ensuring they have the personnel and the equipment necessary to keep our communities safe. When I was chairman of this subcommittee from 2007 to 2010, we were able to more than double the funding for the SAFER program, reaching a peak of $410 million in fiscal year 2010. So it's regrettable that we're not still able to maintain that level, because any cuts to firefighter grants do result in thousands of fewer firefighters on the job. They leave fewer departments able to maintain safe staffing levels, and much less to add needed personnel. So we need to maintain this support. And the real challenge in many communities is not the reluctance of local governments to hire new personnel. It's the potential and actual layoffs of personnel, which would mean reduced levels of safety. So it's very important for us to maintain robust grant funding for these programs. It's going to help preserve public safety and security, and in this bill we've provided for that, and this amendment adds to that, so I urge its adoption, and I yield back.
The gentleman yields back the balance of his time. The question is on the amendment offered by the gentleman from New Jersey. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chairs, the ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to. The clerk will read.
Page 5, line 4. Office of the Chief Financial Officer, $49,743,000, of which $6,700,000 shall remain available until September 30th, 2014, for systems modernization. Office of the Chief Information Officer, $241,543,000, of which $124,673,000 to remain available until September 30th, 2015. Analyst and Operations, $317,400,000, of which $93,764,000 shall remain available until September 30th, 2014. Office of Inspector General, $109,264,000. Title II, Security, Enforcement, and Investigations, U.S. Customs and Border Protection, Salaries and Expenses, $8,366,024,000.
For what purposes the gentleman from Arizona seek recognition?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will report the amendment.
Amendment offered by Mr. Grijalva of Arizona, page 7, line 13. After the first dollar amount, insert increase by $30 million. Page 9, line 14. After the dollar amount, insert reduced by $30 million.
Mr. Chairman,
For what purposes the gentleman from Alabama seek recognition?
I reserve a point of order on the gentleman's amendment.
Point of order is reserved. Gentleman from Arizona is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. And I rise today to offer an amendment to the Department of Homeland Security Appropriations Bill that strengthens our efforts to have a secure and a proper border. As you know, the issues are at the foremost in the thoughts of the people across this country. As was noted when my friend and colleague from Arizona, Mr. Flake, and his amendment that acknowledged that reality, that strengthening the ports of entry should be a national priority. And it is, and his amendment was accepted as a means to begin to increase and pay attention to that national priority. It's a jobs issue, and it is a security issue. Land ports of entry are the economic drivers for the U.S. economy, and also the front line for facilitating legitimate trade and travel while preventing unauthorized entry and contraband from crossing the border. Along the nearly 2,000-mile border with Mexico, U.S. Customs and Border Protection carry out this mission in 42 land ports of entry located in Arizona, California, New Mexico, and Texas. While significant investments in the border have been made in recent years, including the opening of 3 new crossings in 2010, more is demanded. Staffing at our land ports of entry have been severely overlooked, compromising our national and economic security. While a necessary buildup of border enforcement has occurred over the last 10 years, that proportional increase in attention to customs and ports of entry has not occurred. It is estimated that in Arizona alone, our ports of entry need 500 additional officers to meet a staffing need. 250 at the port of entry in Nogales, 50 in Douglas, 150 in San Luis. Nationwide, there is a need for up to 5,000 additional CBP officers. These shortages are alarming, and they have alarming consequences. In 2008, GAO report said, weakness in traveler inspections exists in our nation's port of entry, and according to this report, field office managers said that staffing shortages created vulnerabilities in the inspection process. In 2008, the Department of Commerce found that the cumulative loss in output due to border delays over the next 10 years is estimated at $86 billion. Our economy, and indeed our security, will continue to be compromised unless we take strong measures. My amendment seeks to redirect within the account of border infrastructure additional funds for the personnel sorely needed. Let me just end by indicating some facts and points of reference. U.S.-Mexico bilateral trade reached $400 billion in 2010. Mexico is the third-ranked commercial partner of the U.S. and second-largest market for U.S. exports. Mexico spent $163 billion in U.S. goods in 2010. 22 states count on Mexico as their number 1 or 2 export market, and its top 5 for 14 other states. 1 in every 24 workers in the nation depend on U.S.-Mexico trade for their employment. This is an issue of the economy. It's an issue about jobs. My amendment merely be addressed as a reality. From unobligated and enhancement funds within the budget to transfer $30 million to begin that initial step to bring our ports of entry and customs to a full force in terms of staffing and to begin to expedite legitimate trade and end long waiting periods, improve our economy, and yes indeed, continue to provide the advanced security that we need on those borders. And with that, Mr. Chairman, thank you, and I yield back.
The gentleman yields back the balance of his time. For what purpose does the gentleman from Alabama seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman, I insist on the point of order. The amendment proposes to amend portions of the bill that are not yet read. The amendment may not be considered en bloc under Clause 2F of Rule 21 because the amendment proposes to increase the level of outlays in the bill. I ask for a ruling from the chair.
Any member wish to be heard on this point of order? If not, the chair will rule. The amendment does not qualify under Clause 2F of Rule 21, proposing net increase in outlays. To be considered en bloc pursuant to Clause 2F of Rule 21, an amendment must not propose to increase the levels of budget authority or outlays in the bill. Because the amendment offered by the gentleman from Arizona proposes a net increase in the level of outlays in the bill as argued by the chairman of the Subcommittee on Appropriations, it may not avail itself of Clause 2F to address portions of the bill not yet read. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from California seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will report the amendment.
Amendment offered by Ms. Hahn of California, page 7, line 13. After the first dollar amount, insert increase by $10 million. Page 55, line 2. After the dollar amount, insert reduce by $24,500,000. Page 55, line 4. After the dollar amount, insert reduce by $24,500,000.
The gentlewoman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My amendment is simple. It would increase $10 million in funding to the Customs and Border Protection salary and expense account and decrease funding of the National Bio and Agro Defense Facility under S&T by $24,250,000 in order to increase the staffing of the CBP agents in our nation's airports. This amendment is intended to strengthen security and improve the American business advantage by putting more CBP agents in our airports so that they can handle the continuously growing number of travelers to this country. My own district in California is bookended by two great economic engines of the Los Angeles region, the Port of Los Angeles at the southern end and the Los Angeles International Airport at the north. One of the common complaints that I hear from LAX Airport is that there are simply not enough Customs and Border Protection agents to effectively and efficiently process the amount of foreign visitors that enter this country every year. In fact, the delays at our country's airports have resulted in losing nearly $100 billion in economic output over the last 10 years. If we want to continue being a top destination for immigrants, foreign visitors, and business people, we need to establish a welcoming presence to people who wish to visit this country. This means ensuring we have an efficient CBP staff that can continue to handle the growing number of people who visit this country. In a letter sent from the LA World Airports to the United States Customs and Border Protection Commissioner, it states that, quote, insufficient CBP staff has triggered alarming delays for LAX international passengers waiting to be processed through Customs and Immigration. And while this shortage referred to LAX Airport, delays due to personnel shortages are prevalent throughout our entire country. And I think this is extremely disconcerting. These delays are weakening our competitiveness in the global market, slowing the pace of business, and impeding the commerce we need to fuel our economic recovery. This adds to our nation's airlines and business people's cost. What's more, we know if we overextend and overwork our already heroically overperforming CBP personnel guarding the gateways to our nation, they are more likely to miss things. Something or someone is more likely to get through. They deserve support and numbers equal to the scale of the task that we're charging them with. While I understand the intended purpose of the National Bio and Agro Defense Facility, the reality is this facility was appropriated $75 million, even though the President did not need nor request these funds. Additionally, DHS is still waiting for the recommended design modifications made by the National Academy of Science and for the administration to review the cost and scope of this project, which isn't anticipated to be completed until 2020. I think these funds are better spent on increasing the security and promoting American commerce through our country's airports. That commerce that flows through our international airports powers our economy, keeps the United States a global leader in business. We need to preserve that commerce while protecting our homeland from those who would try to sneak through and do us harm. Thank you, and I urge my colleagues to support what I think is a very important and crucial amendment. I reserve the balance of my time.
You may not reserve. The gentlewoman yields back the balance of her time.
I yield back my time.
For what purpose is the gentlewoman from California?
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I move to strike the last word.
The gentlewoman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I rise to join the gentlelady from California in this amendment to increase staffing funding for Customs and Border Protection. This is a critical issue for our economic competitiveness. If our nation is going to compete globally, we need to think of ports of entry as strategic assets and real opportunities to expand our economy. Without adequate resources and staffing, wait times at ports of entry grow longer and longer. And every minute, Mr. Chairman, that goods and people sit at the border waiting to cross is an opportunity lost. That's opportunities lost for American businesses, for manufacturers and workers. In total, these long delays are projected to result in lost output of more than $86 billion over the next 10 years. In this tough economy, I don't think we can afford to lose these precious dollars. And yet, despite the overwhelming need, increases in staffing in past years represent only a small fraction of what is needed to fully staff our ports of entry, according to the Government Accountability Office. To fully meet this need, we need to ensure that CBP has the resources that it needs to get the job done. And at a time when we need commerce to be moving full steam ahead to drive an economic recovery, we can't afford understaffing at our ports of entry. Additional funding provided by this amendment to hire additional CBP officers will allow for faster processing times through ports of entry and allow those goods to flow through our borders. By facilitating trade, we not only support businesses and jobs, but we also add revenue, as CBP is the largest single source of revenue for the Treasury. It's only second to the Internal Revenue Service. As my colleague has stated, the offset for this provision is a cut in funding for the National Bio and Agro Defense Facility, which was appropriated about $75 million in spite of the fact that the administration did not request these funds. The National Academy of Science is reviewing the security risk of the revised design measures right now. And before that risk is fully mitigated, it's premature, I think, premature to appropriate additional funds, especially when funding for FY11 and FY12 remains unobligated. So this amendment, Mr. Chairman, will put these dollars to better use by promoting our economic growth, and I urge my colleagues to join us in supporting it. And with that, I'll yield back the balance of my time.
The gentlewoman yields back the balance of her time. For what purpose does the gentleman from Alabama seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman, I rise in opposition to the gentlelady's amendment. This bill already provides robust funding for border security operations. In fact, this year we increased CBP border security, inspection, and trade facilitation by $85 million above the President's request. CBP border security is important. I totally agree. but let me mention that the funding that we've increased supports 21,186 CBP officers and other increases in the National Targeting Center and Global Entry, among other programs and initiatives to increase efficiency in CBP operations. CBP's budget faces real challenges. 70% of CBP funds goes for pay and benefits, up from 65% just last year. This figure does not include costs associated with supporting frontline officers, such as equipment and facilities, much less new technology. The committee report outlines opportunities for better managing fee funds and innovating CBP processes. Further, the Secretary has not yet submitted the workload staffing allocation model that will justify any additional CBP officer resources. Given these issues, it's not the time to increase CBP officer staffing. I will say that it must be noted that the facility that would be cut, we have an immediate need to build up our capacity for research into pathogens that affect animals and our food chain, and by extension human beings. The Undersecretary for the Department for Science and Technology herself testified before our subcommittee that the threat of a biological attack through large and vulnerable food chain is a top priority. She has confirmed that the MVAF is a facility is required to meet this threat, so the administration itself has said that this is very important. I would urge my colleagues that they would oppose this amendment, and I would yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back the balance of his time. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from California seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to strike the last word.
Recognize.
And, you know, I appreciate the...
Gentlelady must suspend.
Yes.
Does the gentlewoman ask for unanimous consent to strike the last word?
Oh, I have to ask unanimous consent.
Is there any objection?
Object. I respectfully object.
The objection is heard.
What does that mean?
For the purpose of the gentlewoman from Kansas, seek recognition.
Mr. Speaker, I move to strike the last word.
Gentlewoman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. After an exhaustive review, the Department of Homeland Security chose Manhattan, Kansas as the site for this new BSL-4 National Bio and Agri-Defense Facility. This will be the only such facility capable of researching large animals in the United States. The construction of this cutting-edge facility must move forward quickly so we can safely conduct critical research to develop vaccines and countermeasures in order to protect the public and our livestock from the threats of devastating diseases. But not only will the NBAF accelerate America's ability to protect ourselves, our food supply, and the ag economy from biological threats, it will also be the world's premier animal health research facility and further solidify our nation's place as the international leader in animal health. The NBAF is needed to replace the obsolete and increasingly expansive and expensive Plum Island Animal Disease Center. This lab was built in the 1950s and has reached the end of its life. The facility does not contain the necessary biosafety level to meet the NBAF research requirements, and it never will. Any attempts to upgrade Plum Island would cost more than building the NBAF as planned currently. We do not have the ability to research the effects of these diseases on large animals at any facility in the United States, nor can we rely on international partners for our own security needs. The NBAF project has a history of broad-based support. DHS under both the Bush and Obama administrations and the House Appropriations Committee under both Democrat and Republican leadership have made it clear time and time again that our country needs the NBAF, and the best place for NBAF is in Manhattan, Kansas. Congress has already appropriated $90 million, and the state of Kansas and the city of Manhattan have already committed more than $200 million towards this project. In this age of uncertainty and global threats, conducting vital research to protect our nation could not be more crucial. We cannot just wish away these threats or rely on others for our own security. And the truth of the matter is, we are dangerously underprotected from the threat of biological attack against our people and our food. While the gentlelady's amendment to increase salaries for the Custom and Border Patrol has merit, it shouldn't be done by cutting 29% of the funding for construction of this important lab. The result of this amendment will be stopping or delaying construction of this nationally important NBAF facility, and our nation's food supply cannot afford another delay. We need to protect our food and our families from danger. We need to stay on the cutting edge of this research field. Our security is at risk, and delaying this project further should not be an option. We need NBAF. I urge my colleagues to vote against this destructive amendment, and I yield back the remainder of my time.
The gentlewoman yields back. For what purpose does the gentleman from Kansas seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman, I rise in opposition to this amendment. Strike the last word.
The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also, just as Congresswoman Jenkins opposed this amendment, I urge my colleagues to vote against this amendment as well. The facility at NBAF is a facility that's not just about Kansas. It's important that it's in Kansas. I'm happy that Kansas went through an incredible competition against businesses all across the state and facilities all across the country to make sure that we had the best facility, the facility that was right not for Kansas, but right for America. And after that competition, Manhattan, Kansas was chosen for the site of the National Bio and Agro-Defense Facility. And now Kansas and the United States have already invested heavily in this facility. It's a facility that creates a biosafety lab level 4. It's like no other asset, no other national security asset in America. It's incredibly important. It's important for our food supply and safety for human health. It's not a partisan issue. It was supported by both the Bush and Obama administrations and was passed through both a Republican and a Democrat-controlled Congress. So there's no partisan nature to what's going on at the National Bio-Agro-Defense Facility. It's simply about national security. You know, there have now been multiple reports and commissions indicating that this kind of threat is one of the most imminent threats to our nation's entire homeland security, and it's been for that reason that DHS has been very supportive of NBAF and NBAF being built in Kansas. The state is uniquely qualified. It has exactly the right kind of scientific experts and precisely the expertise to be applied immediately and for the facility built in a way that it can operate safely. We've got to protect animals and people from disease and make sure that when we do that, our communities are safe and secure. This is a challenge that our country is ready and able to undertake at the facility in Kansas. I urge my colleagues to reject this effort to delay this critical development essential to health and safety of our food supply and ultimately the safety of the American people. With that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back the balance of his time. The question is on the amendment offered by the gentlewoman from California. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it. The amendment is not agreed to.
Mr. Chairman, I have a recorded vote, please.
Pursuant to Clause 6 of Rule 18, further proceedings on the amendment offered by the gentlewoman from California will be postponed. Clerk will read.
Page 9, line 5, automation modernization, $700,242,000 to remain available until September 30th, 2015. Border security fencing, infrastructure and technology, $327,099,000 to remain available until September 30th, 2015.
Mr. Chairman.
The gentleman from Utah is recognized for 5 minutes. For what purpose does the gentleman from Utah seek recognition?
Apparently to break the podiums here, but I do have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will report the amendment.
Amendment offered by Mr. Bishop of Utah, page 9, line 14. After the dollar amount, insert reduced by $3 million. Page 10, line 5. After the dollar amount, insert increased by $624,000.
The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes and will be charged for destructing of furniture property.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate you very much. You know, the Border Patrol does a great job when they are allowed to do a great job.
Unfortunately, one of the ironies we have is there are certain areas of access into this country by those who are illegal that seem to be an area of choice, especially of the drug cartels and the human traffickers. There is also an unusual correlation between these areas of access and federal property, which has been designated as wilderness area or endangered species habitat. In fact, in the last year's figures that I have, over half of the illegal entries into this country went through one sector in Arizona, only a portion of the state of Arizona. It was 80% federally controlled, much of that in wilderness area and endangered species habitat. Ironically, the Border Patrol is restricted in these areas from the way they can enforce their purpose of patrolling the border. I find it one of the things that's very strange that the Border Patrol on private property has almost unlimited ability to do their job in enforcing border security. It's only on federal property that the federal Border Patrol is restricted on how it fulfills its federal purpose. Fortunately, the drug cartels and the human trafficking, they don't necessarily care about that restriction. They, for some reason, don't necessarily respect the environmental laws that we have, and the destruction to our environment is caused by them. The trampling of those sensitive areas, pictures of endangered cacti that have been cut down and used by the drug cartels as blockades on the roads. The amount of trash that is left behind is not only destroying the environment, but also an amazingly expensive effort to try and clean it up. I have often flippantly said that the drug cartel would rather eat an endangered species than protect it. Nonetheless, the Border Patrol is required to pay for environmental mitigation damages. Since 2007, the Department of Homeland Security has used the money we think we are appropriating to Homeland Security to the amount of $7 million to go to the Department of Interior for these proposed mitigation of environmental damages. Let me give you a couple of examples of what this has bought us in the past. The Arizona border, they had to reposition their surveillance towers, which of course did lead to some security gaps in those areas, but it also had a problem of the lesser long-nosed bat, which had the nasty habit at evenings of having the tendency of flying into the towers. So one of the mitigations that was insisted upon by the Department of Interior is that the Border Patrol had to pay for a bat patrol, costing thousands of dollars to monitor and track bats who may indeed sometimes fly into a tower. On the Sonoran pronghorn sheep, over $5 million has been paid in the last decade for the Border Patrol to create another Sonoran pronghorn herd and to make sure that they have people there to monitor, feed, and avoid the pronghorn, and if they ever come across it, they have to stand really, really still. Even though this provision has been revoked in recent years, at times some of this money was used by the Department of Interior to buy land that had nothing to do with the border security whatsoever. My amendment, therefore, takes what is in this proposal, $3 million that has been earmarked for environmental mitigation, and move it to a more legitimate and deserving use of that activity by taking it to the Air and Marine Interdiction account to provide money for the Border Patrol to recapitalize their aging fleet. Almost half of all the airplanes that the Border Patrol has are 33 years or older. This has impeded their operational readiness. These obsolete planes that they have make it unable for them to assist in properly securing the border. GAO, in their report, said in 2010, only 73% of the over 38,000 requests for air support could be granted simply because the fleet was aging at that particular time. What it's simply trying to do here is a very simple concept. The better the Border Patrol is at controlling the border, the better the environment will be on the border. It's not the Border Patrol that causes environmental havoc. It is the drug cartels and the human traffickers coming across them. To take this money, which would go to mitigation, and put it where it is desperately needed to try and help the infrastructure so the Border Patrol can better do their job, simply means we will actually have a better environment by doing it. It's the right thing to do. It would be an appropriate and intelligent thing for us to put the money where it would do the most good in giving the Border Patrol the infrastructure they need to do their jobs along our borders, both in the north and in the south. I urge adoption of this amendment, and I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back the balance of his time. For what purpose does the gentleman from Alabama seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman, I rise in support of this amendment. The funds are included in support of border security, albeit to facilitate only the most necessary environmental mitigation activities directly related to border security construction, operation, and maintenance. However, I do understand the gentleman's positions and concerns, and for that reason, accept the amendment.
The gentleman yields back. For what purpose does the gentleman from North Carolina seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman, I move to strike the last words.
The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I rise in opposition to this amendment, which would eliminate $3 million in funding for environmental mitigation in our border security efforts and add that money to air and marine assets, which is already greatly increased in this bill. First, a bit of context. Since 2006, this subcommittee has increased funding for border security by over $2 billion annually. We invested well over $1 billion for fencing and other tactical infrastructure alone during that period. Responding to concerns about possible environmental problems associated with such a massive construction undertaking, much of which has taken place on environmentally sensitive lands, Congress provided very modest amounts to mitigate these potential environmental consequences. Now, as a government, we have many responsibilities and priorities, and these include both securing our borders and protecting our natural and cultural resources. The sort of interagency agreement that Homeland Security and Interior have entered into for environmental mitigation is what we should be encouraging and supporting, especially because this arrangement is explicit in that Interior cannot take any action that CBP does not first agree to. So we've got to keep that commitment to protecting and preserving our environment. We have to maintain that commitment, and I urge colleagues to defeat this amendment. And I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Wyoming seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman, move to strike the last word.
Gentlewoman